Look around. You can find cars like these on AutoTrader, like that car riding your tail. Or if you're tailgating right now, all those cars doubling as kitchens and living rooms are on AutoTrader too. Are you working out and listening to this ad at the same time? Well, multitasking pro, cars like the ones in the gym parking lot are for sale on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader. Just you wait. AutoTrader.
Stop by Sherwin-Williams and get 30% off select paints and stains June 13th through the 23rd. It's the perfect time to transform your space with color. Refresh your home inside and out with colors that make every space feel brand new. From cozy interiors to stunning exteriors, we've got the perfect shade for your next project. Shop the sale online or visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store. Click the banner to learn more. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
When we started writing our thoughts down on paper, it opened up endless possibilities. Ideas could grow beyond the borders of the mind, and it changed the world. Somewhere along the way, we lost touch with paper, distracted by devices made for every purpose except for thinking and focus. On edge, waiting for the next notification. But what if new technology didn't pull us away from paper, but brought us closer to it? Listen. That's not paper. It's the sound of the new Remarkable Paper Pro, rewriting the future. A paper tablet with a true color ink display, gentle reading light, and unheard of tactility. With digital features for taking notes, thinking, and organizing, without any distractions. Paper is about to change the world again. Get your paper tablet at remarkable.com today.
Bonjour, hello, and welcome to the Rosbiff Rugby Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things French rugby, Top 14, Pro Day de National, French national team, the Champions Cup, Challenge Cups, but most importantly of all, the brilliant towns, cities, bars, restaurants, food, wine, everything that makes the French rugby experience and French rugby so excellent. I'm joined back from his holidays, a rare week off last week for Rob, but he's back with us, you'll be glad to know. Rob, I've seen you since, but I'm sure the listeners would love to know how your time away was. So, how have you been?
Seen you more than once, Richard. It's extraordinary. I spent most of my weekend with you, almost, much to the chagrin of my girlfriend, no doubt. It was lovely. Can highly recommend Mallorca and Port de Pollença. The food was fantastic. Maybe next time for our Costa del Rugby, we'll have to hunt out some rugby in Mallorca, see what's happening, and we can tie that into a trip involving some nice food and some nice wine. Mallorca as a place needs to up its beer game, unless you like Spanish lager, which I know a lot of people do. But after a while, I just wanted something. Cruz Campo, I think, was the best of them. I'm going to put it out there. Better than San Mig, better than Madrid's the fake one, isn't it? What's the other one? Estrella Damm and Estrella Galicia. I'm saying Cruz Campo, probably the best of the lot of the bland lagers, but not much hops going on out there. You can find it eventually in Parma, and I went a bit crazy.
You couldn't find one of your sort of beloved like foie gras sour beers, 11%, just what you want when it was. What you said it was like 34 degrees.
34
time,
degrees,
right?
Yeah. To be fair, like the Cruz Campo was much appreciated in 33-degree heat, but
very nice.
Yeah, I can see certainly, and also a big another one for a demi as they serve in the south of France, and like reiterating why that is the case, because you just want the cold stuff, basically.
Very wise review. And then, as if Rob last week wasn't good enough, not only did you have a lovely few days in the sun, enjoying the food, enjoying what Mallorca has to offer, dodging the anti-tourist protests. I saw there were some of those in Palma, I think, over the weekend. You then produced some heroics in Surrey.
Well, I also
village
saw
cricket.
But I also watched the World Test Championship final in the cricket. Went to Lord's. In the museum, there was a bit of stuff about French cricket, actual French cricket, which I mean, I could have spent a whole day in there, but I didn't because I had a game to watch, but that was very enjoyable. Lords is actually a pretty good day out, I'd say. Drinks-wise, the bar is now Brewdog throughout, which I think I quite rate. And luckily I was with a member, so the stand I was in had members' prices, which were relatively reasonable. So didn't eat anything there. Oh no, I had a breakfast roll, which was an extortionate amount of money, but did the job early on. Other than that, it was the classic take your own bit of BYO champagne. But yeah, and I reckon that's probably doing better than Wembley. Your experience at Wembley.
Yeah, we had a lovely nugget at Wembley. It was absolutely outstanding. But not often you get a chance to have burger sauce. It was delicious.
So ironically, we have managed to do the home of English football and the home of English cricket, but not one of us has been to Twickenham in 2025 or this season.
No, last time I went it was last season. It was sort of last summer.
Yeah,
the big game or whatever it's called.
Are we developing an anti-English rugby vibe? Have we gone so French that we're now anti-English?
Well, we've gone towards actual French cricket rather than anything that touches English rugby.
Yeah,
but maybe redress the balance slightly on this podcast, given what's coming up this weekend. Albeit neither of us will be there. I think we're hopefully. I don't know who we're playing, but we're playing someone in the kind of wilderness of Surrey cricket leagues after Rob took 2 wickets and 2 balls the other day for a famous victory away at Spencer
to win a 2-run victory, which wouldn't have happened without some wicket-keeping heroics from Richard Croney. So, yeah, we both played our part in that final over and that heroic victory over a local bitter rival. My first win over said rival, who will remain nameless. If you really want to know, OG fair. I was also like, people, if they really care, they can probably find out who we play for and find the scorecard. But I don't think people care that much. They're not here for Surrey Championship cricket.
No, I don't think they are. And it's fair to say there was some slightly more important stuff in the French rugby and sporting world more broadly going on, particularly on Saturday and particularly at the same time. There was a packed out Stade des Alps. Grenoble looking to finally get up into the top 14, put aside their access match blues and the remarkable turnover against Montauban the previous week. And at least from a Grenoble perspective, unfortunately it wasn't to be. Perpignan came out the victors. We did get quite a few messages in the week for sort of illegal streaming advice and things. See if can you know where we can watch this?
There's clearly a lot of attention right now because of the brilliant work from FR UK, because you can get a lot of the top 14 games on Premier Sports now, whether it's on the app or not. To somehow not have that game available anywhere in the UK is a bit of a cock up from someone. It just felt like
frustrating.
It's the biggest. I kind of plugged it as the slightly tongue-in-cheek as the biggest game in club rugby, but it can't be far off because you're trying to get in or trying to stay in the biggest, richest league in the world, and you've got superstars in both sides. So I think there would have been a lot of interest in it, and that I don't think we've ever had quite as many. I guess it's more of a one-off game, but quite a lot. Yeah, you're right. A lot of people getting in touch saying, "How do we watch this?"
Yeah,
even Spritz and Scrums keen to
see.
Yeah, there's no Italian interest in the URC. They wanted to keep tabs on Tommy Allen, no doubt.
Yeah, who came through as he so often does. I mean, we weren't able to watch it live. We weren't able to see things as it happened. I was keeping tabs on Francisco Isaac, who was obviously always brilliant with everything Pro de Deux. And I think he put a note out probably about midway through the match saying, if you have a heart condition or don't operate well under tense circumstances, this might not be the one for you. And from what I've seen, that did very much appear to be the case. Have you managed to catch some decent chunks of this one?
Yeah, I've caught a decent chunk of it. What on earth was that?
Sorry, I was just opening up my phone to try and get a little journalist comment, but someone sent through a video of my niece shouting. So there you go, Sylvia. First shout out on the podcast.
Shout out! Clearly a massive Tommy Allen fan. I mean, I don't quite know what to make of it. Really, I think Grenoble didn't do themselves too many favours with their basic skills, I'd say. Like a lot of drop ball in contact, drop ball in mauls. Like they won the line out and just dropped the ball in the maul quite a lot. I think the Perpignan defence, as it has been in fairness all season, was pretty good and didn't give them much time. And Perpignan's scrum bailed them out on a number of occasions and got them territory because they just folded them, certainly in the first half anyway, from what I've seen. They were just kind of completely on top. And I don't really know how I feel about it generally. Tell me what you've seen and what you, if it was a long old game, every break in play, whether it was time off or not, was about 45 seconds of pause.
Well, it was 33 degrees during the second half, so I think they had kind of mid water breaks, didn't they, midway through?
But it was every time the ball went down, like it just took an age to get restarted.
I guess given the stakes and the tension and the heat and fatigue, it's probably not that surprising. Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched the whole game, so I can't comment too much on the real specifics. But ultimately, for Perpignan, it feels like the blueprint that we've discussed quite a lot, certainly towards the back end of the season, which is scrum dominance, and there's no shame in being done over in the scrum by a team who have done it to so many kind of quality packs over the last season, and as you've said, have really bailed them out at points.
And now comes with the added boost of 150 kilos in the second row in the form.
Yeah,
if Kieran Brooks' scrummaging was not enough, just chuck 150 kilos of Basola to a Langy behind him. It's quite useful. Yeah,
I suppose the things that did stand out to me were, one, the fact Perpignan, who have not played, have not scored many points this year. Sort of fabulous try in the first 3 minutes or something.
It was inside 2. I think he went over on 159.
Yeah, and it all looks a little bit ominous. And from there, that's kind of they did pick them apart again, but Pro De La Fuente, basically in the act of diving over the line. I think some credit to I can't remember who it was. Was it Barnaby Quee who caught him and sort of managed to help slightly dislodge the ball as he was, because they were under the post. But those aside, it didn't appear to attack too or string together too much by way of attacking rugby. I guess the thing that's the absolute sickener for Grenoble is it 2 years genuinely 2 years in a row, 77th minute, 78th minute penalty.
Yeah.
They've been done by. And the slight irony, I suppose, is that the Triu kick, which came just before to put them 13-11 ahead, came off the back of two really dominant Grenoble scrums. And as I'm saying that, I realise I'm going between Grenoble and Grenoble, so I'll pick one at some point. But they kind of went the replacement front rows for Perpignan, but they'd started
Ceccarelli and Devoe.
Turn momentum at least a little bit, and then to be done in those circumstances is it's just a bit of a sickener for them, isn't it? And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the restart went out on the full afterwards as well, so they just ceded possession straight away. Yeah, so I'm sure you'll get slightly more in-depth technical analysis elsewhere, but I just feel for them, and I like Perpignan. It's a place I'd like to go, and we love Kieran Brooks, we love Georgie Berrier, but I just it's beyond sucker punch, isn't it? It's horrible for them. So that's three on the spin access.
3 on the spin, and I think last year, I have to call it out, another friend of the show, but Sam Davis missed a very gettable conversion in that first half. Like, it was inside the 15 metres on the favoured side for a left-footed kicker. I think he missed a few last year as well. And when you've got a guy who has been so solid week in, week out, has been the absolute man for them. Also, it kind of adds to the sucker punchness when, just slight errors on the day like that don't quite work. I think a guy that really impressed me was Wilfred Haller, who did have 2 tries chalked off in the first half. One would have been a brilliant individual finish, and Tavita Veradami just got they had a good look at it, and I was I'm pretty happy that it was Veradami that got there first, but it's nearly simultaneous.
It is,
and
then
I
think you're right though.
The second one, quite clearly live, is a forward pass from what was otherwise a very, very nicely worked back move, and if Farno just gets that final pass right, it's a brilliant try, and Huller's got plenty in the tank to finish it. But I thought all around the park as well, he's been really good, and I'm pretty sure he's off to Racing next season.
He is, yeah. You're
Albeit
right.
that Grenoble are getting Rafael Costastorti, so another brilliant finisher coming in. But yeah, a shot of Gershwin Mouton was on the sidelines, wasn't he? Because he was picked up quite a bad injury in that semi-final. I think as much as it was a bit of a sucker punch in this one, I think they cocked it up last week. That was the
Yeah, I
game
don't
that they
think
should have
anyone.
won. Like you don't take it to chance. They dominated teams in Pro D2 all season. They should have beaten Montauban. And I think the injuries kind of stacked up. Like, yes, they got Muarua back and Javakia came in on the bench, but Hardwick, that suspension wasn't great, but they were missing Mouton and they kind of had to chopped and changed a bit in the back line as well from the week before. So Madeira as well, you lose a guy that makes so many tackles and turnovers and stuff like that. Like, yeah, it's having to make those changes coming into a second final, I guess, not what you want. And that it's a shame because all season they kind of felt like they had so much depth and like it was a kind of good level across the whole squad where everyone was at the same level. But when you lose a few people, you lose that kind of depth, and therefore coming into the final, into the access match, they didn't quite have that depth. But yeah,
it's a real shame for them. I'm sure they'll be there and thereabouts next year. And maybe next year's the one. It's it's an amazing place to watch rugby as well, and a fabulous club, incredible academy. Grenoble, some of the names that have come through it, so they will come again, I'm sure. My last thing on this game was just
including Louis Bielbiere, no?
Yeah. And I think his brother, who we saw was playing for
under 18s,
France universities, wasn't it?
Yeah,
the universities. The last thing I just wanted to call on this game was two things. One, you can never begrudge Perpignan anything when they're playing in that magnificent Catalan kit. It's so good. Just every time absolutely gets me. And on that note, have you seen during the second half, Lucas Velat, during the sort of like 20-minute break, a bit of a water break, geeing up the pack, and it's basically like we're winning this for the 3,000 in this stadium, for the Catalan people. It's and you would run through a brick wall, possibly away from him as well. Quite a scary looking bloke when he's coming off the long run there. So pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, my kind of final thing on that was people talk about in the Premiership, sorry, the Prem, the away fans or the away ends, and you look at that ground where you had a section of a block entirely red and yellow, and it just looked amazing. Like they brought so much further, as like Perpignan are kind of renowned as the loudest, noisiest, angriest, most fervent fans in France almost. Well, no, not almost. But you see that section of the stand, and that is an argument for away ends or away stands, because there were other Perpignan fans dotted around, but when you collect them together, it just brings so much colour, atmosphere, noise, all of that jazz. I think
cool.
It's just generally on. Were you going to move on to kind of the wider end of Pro D2?
No, I was going to talk about the fact there were a couple of punch-ups on the pitch after the game between Grenoble and Perpignan fans, which I think was simmered down. But there were like riot shields and there were definitely punches being thrown, which isn't funny. But what is funny is that I saw a couple of like little reports of this, but the only video I'd seen was just an Instagram post, and it was basically from one of the local newspapers or like media outlets in Grenoble, and just sort of saying that these disgraceful scenes, and it was liked by one player. It was liked by Pio Muarua. It's just like this video of people like landing shots on each other. His parting gift was to maybe he was in there sort of nudging a few folk around as well before he goes up to play more. What a guy.
Just embedding that cult hero status. I guess just generally, like for me, it feels mad that Montauban are the one team from Pro D2 has come up, and it happens to be Montauban. Like, because Sam Davis, when he came on our podcast, said he thought that two Pro D2 teams would go up because he thought the strength of the league was as such quality. And we kind of, well, personally for me, when he said that, I thought, I can see Grenoble or Brive winning an access match, or Provence winning an access match. Like the fact that Brive, Grenoble and Provence are none of them are the one club that have gone up to top 14 is just weird. Like it feels wrong. Great for Pro D2, especially now, like we're going to be able to see more of it for free. Great. And like 3 great places that we can go and watch and do some great double headers for long weekends. But Montauban are going to get absolutely pumped next year unless they have some serious recruitment, and unless Sebastian Tillersboard gets everyone on the Tillersboard diet and gym program and they all become absolutely shredded. I can't see Montauban doing much.
Yeah, it's tricky. I guess obviously Van have gone straight back down, but they more than held their own for big parts of the season. But that was kind of the end of a longer project, wasn't it, where they were knocking on the door.
I think I saw that I can't remember the exact stat, but Van had like the highest points tally for a 14th place side in like 10 years or something, or a long time. Yeah, it was basically like they kind of got a threshold that you would often have been enough.
Yeah, it's going to be a hell of a difficult league to get promoted out of next year as well.
4 big teams.
4 big teams plus I get if they
Angoulême
pretty rubbish this
Clermont.
year. You'd think Oyonnax will have pretensions to do a lot more than they did this year as well.
Yeah.
Like, it could be interesting. Let's not wish away the summer, but it's going to be good fun. So yeah, should we leave that there? Congratulations to Perpignan, commiserations Grenoble, and move on to Barrage. Where should we start? Should we go with the
better game?
The better game.
Let's go for the best game. I'm actually wearing a Castres t-shirt as well, so let's go.
Very
for that.
Nice.
Last time I can wear it this season.
Where do we start with it? Because it was, what was the final score? 52-23, I think it was, which probably doesn't quite tell the entire story. But Toulon were the superior side, but I don't think they were 29 points better.
No, absolutely not. That's where you can start with that game. Is that was a completely
varnished result.
Completely unrepresentative scoreline, because Castres were absolutely fantastic, I thought, for a lot of this game. Their defence was brilliant. Their own kind of basics and everything we expect from Castres, like the forward play and nuggetiness and just a bit of nous and this timing of when they're able to kind of turn it on, and their own attacking game. I thought Castres were great.
Yeah, they also served up one of my favourite moments of the season, which was Abraham Papa, who's had an amazing season.
Yeah.
But his try, I know we use this analogy quite a lot, but it's truly like something out of schoolboy rugby. Free kick, tap and go, about 30 metres out.
Yeah.
And firstly, he nearly manages to like volley the tap and go. He's like pumped up pre-tap and go, taps it above his head, and then just straight lines it through David Ribbons.
and someone else, like Facundo Issa or something like that.
Gahu, and then shoves off Jean-Baptiste Gross and just goes under the post. So that combined like near enough a quarter of a ton on his way.
More than that, like it's nearly like half a ton.
Yeah, so that was very enjoyable.
It was like, because I'd seen you post about that, and then I watched the game afterwards and was like, oh my God, that is just not, that is direct, but how has that happened in an elite game of professional rugby?
Mad, completely mad.
Although Facundo Issa kind of had his own moment in what became the Jaminet try, the one where he kind of gets it on the 22, his own 22, and powers through quite a few big forwards and gets the ball away to Wainikolo, who was absolutely ridiculous yet again. And he makes Demora look a bit silly without having to, obviously he's rapid, but he didn't look like he had to do too much. And then the ball to Jaminet, who, has a pretty simple job. But Wainikolo, I thought, was outstanding.
It seems astonishing that he's on his way to Lyon.
Yeah. I mean, they talked about it on commentary, why is he going? And they were like, well, money talks.
Yeah, he was remarkable. I can't remember exactly, but his stats from the game in terms of like your meters and defenders broken, defenders beaten, and tackles broken were the sort of things that you just don't see ever. Like, it was completely ridiculous, and it looked that way. Yeah, I mean Toulon. I think, as you say, they weren't 29 points better, but they were probably a little bit ahead of the game. Cass had a bit unlucky with injuries throughout. Missing Goodhue going into this, and then were a bit knackered in the back line. I think Errata ended up on the wing, didn't he, for a bit?
Yeah,
couldn't quite work out what was going on with. There's a little bit of Fernandez at 10, then 9, and Errata. Yeah, it was all a little bit
Brun, in getting yellow carded, the head contact absolutely wiped him out cold. And he was kind of very much being helped, like one of those ones where, both, I think it was Barney on commentary and Mertz were like, well, he's just not coming back on. Like, he will not be returning off that yellow card period. And Demora came on. I don't know, I feel like Demora and Pallis, like, kind of the same player, but like, what are they? Are they like a fullback? Are they a winger? Do they step in at 10? Like, Pallis kicked goals before Fernandez came on. I don't know. Lebrun was quite clearly the first choice 10. They don't really have a backup 10 with Popolan injured. I think they probably should have gone. And then Pallis went off, which didn't matter because they brought on Fernandez for goal kicking. And it seemed like they started with Demora onto the wing and Fernandez at 10 and Arata at 9, which would have made the most sense. And then they switched it, which I don't really understand because Arata was brilliant at 9 and has been all season. And Fernandez feels like one of those 9s in France that should be able to play 10 pretty comfortably in the way that he kind of kicks and manages play. So they ran out of steam, really. They had a 6-2 split, and they only had 2 backs on the bench, I think.
Yeah. They usually 5-3 cast. I think they probably saw Toulon and thought, well, this.
But this game, I guess, was about you mentioned it there, Toulon's power. Their pack is big and has been all season. It's been very good. But I've said all season, like, the power in the back line is like something to be reckoned with. And obviously the headline grabbing moment towards the end is 43-year-old Mar Nonu just direct, vintage. To be fair, I don't know if Nonu did do that back in the day. He was a bit more nuanced, but that was just a proper big bloke running hard and straight off a flat ball from 9. But for me, the interesting
accelerates quickly enough for a 43-year-old, like, and
the power to have that. He's still, I know, like one of the tacklers is Arata, who's about 3 stone, but
that's not a guy. It's not a guy who looks like someone who's come back from
being on the beach. Yeah.
Yeah, remarkable.
He's not exactly done a Stephen Donald. But the interesting thing for me there was, do you see who was packing down at 8 in that scrum?
Oh, I don't know if I did. Who was it? Just someone niche.
So we flagged that Nonu was a medical joker for Olivon and could potentially be packing down at 8.
Yeah.
So you think
he came on for Issa, didn't he?
And he came on for Issa, but they moved Lestify and Ganuku into the pack. And we've been saying all season, he's kind of quite often he plays like Ari Surveyor, just like in and around the fringes, picking and going. Maybe the transition's happening. He's coming for you, Ardy, when he comes back to Crusaders. Maybe he's an unbelievable player. Like the physicality that he brings. If they do go into that game next week with Nonu and Fainganuku at any point in the centres, I think that's and I think it will be that pack that I guess we'll come on to the bit of a preview in a bit, but it will be their pack that
can upset.
If they can, yeah. Should we move on to the next game and then we'll do preview?
Let's do it. Bayonne. We had Alex Moon on last week, and good omens, it appears. What was an absolutely dripping wet Stade Jean Daucher, like full. Some of the wet weather rugby was quite something, but they were
the quality of the rugby given how wet it was.
Yeah,
like at one point the rain was like, it looked like kind of shards of ice almost. Like the droplets were that big. They were kind of looked like lightning bolts, like going through the air.
I think it was one of like the Camille Lopez kicks in the second half when they zoom in on him. Yeah, it looks like there's just chunks coming out of the sky. It was quite something. I haven't seen a huge amount of this, but fairly comfortable from what I saw and what I've read.
Yes, I mean, if you wanted wet weather rugby and you wanted some fly halves to kick you around and that sort of 10-man game, Sagons, Lopez and Erdebajeta would probably be 3 of your top picks. But actually, Erdebajeta missed a few kicks. I think he kind of struggled with it was clearly tough goal kicking for the underfoot. And he didn't, I think the Bayonne just got their kicking game a bit better. Like Tiberian's got a huge boot. There was one beautiful long range kick from like 50-22 from 22 to 22 almost. And that led to some points after a few phases. And I think, like Bayonne just turned up a bit more. Like their forward carriers were just a bit more in the game than Clermont. They just had a bit more ball. They were able to keep the ball a bit more, and Sagons was good at kicking them around the park. And then there was a moment of magic not really from Cami Lopez, because that crossfield kick is like horizontal.
It's a brilliant finish.
In both senses of the word. It's like horizontal in that it doesn't really go forward, and horizontal it doesn't really get off the ground. But Tom Spring, 1-on-1, does the rest, basically, doesn't he?
Who the bits I saw, it looked like he had a brilliant game, Tom Spring.
Yeah,
He's been really good for them this season.
And he had a chunk out of his face from a that he went off for an HIA in the first half with like proper bruise and like Vaseline like everywhere. But yeah, he had a really, really good game. And that was, and you know, in that it was a sort of game where one try would probably be enough, and it kind of proved that way. I guess the two teams that would have been suited to that sort of game as well. It's kind of good that one was the wet one and Toulon Castres was the dry one. Alex Moon himself played really well as well. But it's just nice to see like Etruria obviously came into that with a shitload of emotion. Their first top 14 barrage game since it's been the top 14.
Yeah.
First playoff since like 93 or 94, I think. And it clearly meant a lot to Artur Etruria.
And he was the one who got to boot it off at the end. Did you see
that?
Yeah. Which was quite cool. Very good.
They have the enviable task next weekend in Lyon. On Friday night, at least they get a 7-day turnaround of playing Toulouse. Can you see them causing an upset?
I don't know if I can.
They beat them at Stade Jean Daget.
They did. I would love them to, and I know there's still a few question marks on a couple of injuries, right, for Toulouse. But I just think that, we just know their depth in quality and their. And pretty much any team, any strength for pretty much any side in the top 14, you'd probably say Toulouse is at least on a par or kind of better than, maybe up front with the exception of like Toulon. But I think I'd like to think it might be quite close. Toulouse, a few of their big guys are coming back, having not played for a little bit. But Bayonne have been so kind of smart, and they've got a way of playing, haven't they? They're not gonna overplay and shoot themselves in the foot. You're gonna have to beat them. They're not gonna come in and flake. So I think probably a hurdle too far, but why not? Yeah,
and I mean, apologies to people that have been listening to us throughout the season. We've said all along, if you can get at this Toulouse team, it is at scrum time and possibly, depending on the day, on their line-out. Their line-out can be exceptional, but I think Bayonne's defensive line-out is absolutely outstanding with Chuzanu, Etruria. Yeah, they've got brilliant line-out defence, mainly Etruria, and their scrum is really good, especially with Tanguy, even without Tatafu, like Luke Tanguy in there.
Swan Cormenier, he's had a brilliant season.
Yeah. I think there's enough there in the physicality that they bring in keeping that narrow game. There's enough that they could cause Toulouse problems, but you say that and then you'll just have like a Willis turnover or like a ridiculous like Flamand counter ruck, and any progress will just be nullified and you're under your own sticks because, I don't know, some Mali has done something outrageous or whatever. Like they're a very tough team to beat.
Yeah,
it feels like they haven't played for ages. I feel like
I was thinking this
bloody ages
because they played. I mean, they were only at Perpignan the other week, weren't they? But they had a few big hitters, but a slightly changed side. Yeah, I think there's just been so much other sort of showpiece rugby going on. They've rather slipped to the back of the mind slightly.
Yeah, which is worrying. That's slightly ominous. That could mean that I think they will come into this slightly undercooked, but that will be like a first half where it's a bit scratchy, doesn't quite click, and then it could easily be like 40-point demolition in the second half because when they click, they are relentless.
Absolutely. Okay, and that leaves us with Toulon Bordeaux on the Saturday night as well. Is it a late kickoff?
Yeah.
Well, that's good. That looks that's enticing, I would say, from afar.
It looks more likely than the other one to get a result from a barragiste, I would say. I genuinely think it might happen.
Yeah.
I don't know. I every time I doubt Bordeaux, they seem to be pretty good. So, yeah. But I feel like if there is another team other than Toulouse that can beat Bordeaux, if I could pick from the other 12 teams in the league, it's the next best one that I think might be able to do it.
Funny how these things work.
Yeah, mad that, isn't it? Call me old-fashioned.
With a decent bit of cash and history behind them.
Yeah,
happen to be quite a good side.
But I think they've got the game plan and the way they play and the physicality, I think, is the main one. I think the way that the physicality kind of came through in the last 10 minutes, I guess, against Castres, with some of the guys they can bring off the bench in terms of like Alan Owisi and Nonu, and I guess Le Corvec's not quite the same profile, but like
At the start of the season, I would have not have said you would be talking in the top 14 semi-final saying they can bring Nonu off the bench. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
And well, Alan Oisi's old as well, isn't he? But yeah, he could bring Nonu off the bench, also bringing Gitto, Bastero.
A banner.
Yeah. But Ben White is a really, top end player. Is pretty good player to, if Saran, he didn't have his best game, he was still pretty good. But, if he's not firing, you can bring Ben White off. But like the guys in the front row as well. I think Evaldi's been really good this season as a deputy hooker for Bobigny. And that is the one area that Bordeaux kind of lack a bit of oomph, I'd say. They don't lack depth in that pack and in the kind of physicality stakes. It's just the sheer oomph. I guess Nonu and Rohan Jansi van Rensburg are pretty like for like, aren't they? But their back five options are much more athletes than physical lumps, and their front row reserves have been shown to be, well, when they can get Falater and Tamefuna on and fit and in form, that's pretty good options. But when they haven't had that, you're looking at Laterad or Connoisseur or Boniface has kind of flattered to deceive a bit as well, hasn't he? Like, they just don't quite have the grunt in that pack in the reserves that perhaps Toulon might do.
Yeah, it should be an amazing game, and going to go full cliches, but that kind of mix of, I'm not saying necessarily mix of styles, but mix of apparent strengths. I think in that, that sort of electric back line against some guys who are heavy and will just blow you away if you don't get it right up front. It's it's really intriguing. It should be awesome.
Toulon's defence has been pretty good all year. I don't think we've not seen them. We've not seen their full team up against a full team of the other two. I guess you could say that.
Champions Cup we did against Toulouse.
Yes, and that was pretty damn close. It
was very close, yeah.
And I think their defence is pretty good. They can handle it. And I think they can play. Like, when you've got 100%. Wanakolo, fucking anything can happen. And Fayanganuku. And there was just signs in that last 10, 15 minutes that they click. And it's just whether Toulon are a bit of like, can they click? They can win ugly, or they can win not ugly if they click. And I'd say about 2/3 of the season they've been winning ugly, and the rest has been like, look at that Saracens game when they turned it on. It's just glorious to watch. And I wonder if they can. It could be a thriller if they can kind of get that back on to click. And the other key thing I think is Jaminet, because his boot could make all the difference. He missed a few, but it's just I feel like he missed it because he hit it. If anything, he's hit it too well, Clive.
Hitting it over the posts, and therefore you can't tell if it's gone through. Yeah, he hammers it, doesn't he? Like, it's quite.
He barely touches it, and it's like a little rocket, cartoon rocket in his boot.
He's also been playing his all-round game is pretty phenomenal, as well, isn't it? That should be incredible. Any more on that, or should we just look forward to and envy people who are having a double header in Lyon this weekend?
Yeah, it's a good ticket, that, isn't it?
Very, very
Friday
good.
night, bit of rugby. Saturday in Les Alpes.
Some of the best food have in the world. And
trying to avoid drinking too much
chartreuse.
I'm
actually I'm wearing that t-shirt now.
Musette de Lyon, yeah.
Musette, yeah. If anyone's going, it's a fabulous little restaurant in the Les Alpes. But yeah, do be careful around the local spirits. Okay. Let's come back in a second and talk about a bit of international or international-ish action coming up. Now then, Rob, I know this interested you and intrigued you this week, and it's I'd almost forgotten this game was taking place, but it's England 15 versus a France 15, which I think is a distinction between like a kind of A team.
Well, I'm looking at the squad list here as from the France social media, and it says Le Groupe France A. So,
really?
But yeah, I think it's basically the same. I think, were you about to say it means they're not going to be capped players?
I believe so.
Captured,
correct.
Yeah. Which is quite a key thing because, and we should have done our research on this to find out whether it is captured players. I assume basically if you're in this, you're probably going to end up playing for France. But there are three names that stick out, being Tyler Duguay, Jaco van Tonder, and Aliveretti Dangivalu, who ostensibly are not French, to kind of Tyler Degree, Canadian, Jaco van Tonder, as you might guess, South African, and Alberti Damgavalu, as you might guess, Fijian. And, these guys in their mid-20s, these are not youngsters. They'll be GIF, they will have cut, like, Damgavalu's been at Perpignan since he was like 18. Like, he's been there for a long, long time. Similarly, Tyler Degree has been in France for a long time. And so France have clearly used this to try and capture people, I think.
Yeah.
And like this game like really excited us back in whenever it got announced, like ages ago, because that's when we called out Noah Nene as being a future star and we were ahead of everyone. Just a little reminder for everyone there to blow our own trumpet. But we kind of like spitballed a few names, like who from Pro Day 2 are we going to see, and which exciting young French stars are we going to see? And this just feels a bit it's really it's like I feel like the balloons popped with this announcement. I've not seen the England announcement, and that could be quite cool, or it could equally be like the same, like we're going to pick people that you would never have thought of, and a few blokes have been knocking on the door for it. It's literally like Willis and Cunningham South, and
the England one
like
is very
Don
much
Brand. It's like
cool. Not the guys who have there's no anyone of any sort of interest that was in the training squad beforehand, or like a little slightly lesser name like Ilioni, who's obviously been amazing the last few months. Slightly less amazing, but a player I really like, Richard Capstick for Exeter. He's like, they're gone. So it's just your sort of your next ins. But
Andy Farrell's ruined it by picking Pollock as well in the Lions, but we called that one as well, so we can't complain too much.
I think you're right. The interesting thing here is that the real young guys are all, with the exception of like a Moustan or Jeannot, who's been capped once, which I didn't realise.
Yeah, last summer.
All the kind of real young guys, the 21, 22-year-olds, are blokes we've seen before. So it's the Po contingent, Oridu, Atasogbe, Gaeton, and then Leo Barre, and then a few folks who I don't know, some guys I wasn't necessarily expecting to see in the squad, like a Baptiste Docio and Dalbanya. Which again is maybe now's the time to ask the question. It's not the sort of squad I was expecting, and it almost feels to me like there's maybe a few guys here that it's genuinely a case of just having a look, which you don't really often have the luxury of doing when you're an international coach. But I don't know, that's kind of my read on it, which is maybe a little bit unfair on some of the guys who have been picked, because there's some real quality players in there. But you're right, it's not like these I think there's 13 new caps, and they're not all 20 years old.
No, a lot of them are actually 24, 25, 26, 27. Like Theo Millet has had a really good season, like inside centre for Lyon, but he's 27. Theo William is a guy that we've called out quite a bit. He's 24. Dabanya is he's over 31. 30, I think. Yeah, because I remember we said he celebrated his 30th birthday by running the Olympic flame through Po. Yeah. So it is weird, isn't it? And like Rabah Slimani's in there. Yeah. I think that says more about the kind of injuries that they've got or lack of availability they've got at tight head. Like Antonio, I think we knew wasn't going to tour. Tatafu was injured. He was the kind of the equivalent of this last year, I guess.
Colomb has fallen out of favour, hasn't he?
Colomb has just disappeared. The fact that Malaise is there, like a Toulouse youngster who's been playing in Pro Day 2. He's the only Pro Day 2 player in there. Correct me if I'm wrong. I was just going to scan down the list before I make the balls up.
Correct.
But and he's not, he's been on loan at Provence. He's not even a kind of come through the academy at Provence or anything like that. Yeah, I think you're right. That's quite a good way that's probably why. Like, can we have a look? Are these guys up to it? Especially in the case of the new national players. Yeah. There's quite a lot of players that I think you could level that at anyway that aren't there. Someone like Remy Barrages was in squads earlier on this year, like never really had a look, unless they had a look at him then and decided not for me. Like Van Verberg, there's barely any cast players in there.
Yeah, it's just Barlow,
which I find mad. Yeah,
you would think they would,
like Shabuni or someone like that. Like, let's have a look at him or Delaporte. It all feels a bit.
It's a strange one.
Our condolences, obviously, to Arthur Vincent, who seems to
Yeah,
have
what's gone on there? He'll be
We,
back for New Zealand, don't you worry.
For anyone who doesn't know what we're on about, we've said for a long time that Arthur Vincent is the bloke that invariably turns up in these squads. I reckon Leo Burdo might be the new Arthur Vincent.
Could well be. Could well be.
Could be. Although he might be starting 10 in this. It can be, because it's going to be between him and Hastoy.
Yeah. What I will say though is that I think it's what a 20, is it 29, 28 man squad?
Yeah.
28. You're still getting a pretty decent 23 out of it, whichever way you look at it. You know, regardless that there's a few guys there we don't know a huge amount about, but really excited to see like Regis Montaigne in there. Enjoyed watching him play for some time. Yeah, a couple of guys who really came through. We've spoken about what a fantastic kind of breakthrough season Mikael Guillard's had. Yeah,
and Teo William.
Teo William's been excellent, hasn't he, as well?
Yeah. I think it's kind of strange to see so many Lyon players. I think it's maybe they've just got a strong French contingent, same as Po. Like they've just got proportionally more French players than a Racing, because it's literally only, I guess Demba Bamba's at Racing now, isn't he? But Woki, Bamba, Legaric, it kind of feels like where's like a Diallo or a, don't know, like a who's the bloke you like, Baudon? Where's he?
Yeah.
It feels kind of a few clubs centric. Like very few La Rochelle players as well, which I know a lot of them have had a lot of game time, but no Jegu, for example. I think Jegu might be injured, to be fair.
Yeah.
But surprisingly, a lot of Clermont players, but yet surprisingly light on Castres and La Rochelle players, the two clubs that finished two below Clermont. So strange.
Yeah, we'll see though. I think, I'm really, a bit of a shame it's not like a Friday evening affair and could have snuck along, but should be pretty interesting outing, and I'm sure
3:15 on Saturday for UK people, and it's on Rugby Pass.
Yes,
on Rugby Pass TV.
I'd also imagine there are tickets going if anyone wasn't aware of it and wanted to get along. Could be a really, really good afternoon out. One thing I've also
you can join, and you can when he scores 5 tries, you can join the Attisog Bays.
You can start spreading your Malden salt all over the place.
Yeah. Pretending you're Attisog Bay.
My only last thing on this is I've learned something about one of these players. Not that I know much about them, but Maël Moustin, I did not realise was from Martinique.
Yes,
cool.
I think I knew he was from like a colony.
His home club, RC Diamant Martinique, and he's been awesome certainly the back end of the season. So I imagine he'll be probably set to start on one wing with Attisog Bay on the other, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I'd love to see them go like Barré at 12 and put Attisog Bay or Barré at 10 and go Attisog Bay at fullback, but I think they will play Barré at 15. I think on the website they show you their first club, don't they? Certain announcements. Yeah, always quite fun, I find, for the real French rugby nerds, or French geography nerds.
And when Bayonne did their kind of Instagram team announcement the other day, there was the Ipswich Rugby Club crest, which is quite cool. Yeah. Someone's had to do a little bit of scurrying around to find it, but
I'd love it if they'd like accidentally put like Ipswich Town FC on there.
Yeah, Tractor Boys. That would have been a nice touch. Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. Could be an interesting affair down at Twickenham. There's more squad news though. The under-20s for the World Cup's been announced, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, and I mean the big one, again, apologies for if you listen or follow any of our stuff on social media, you will know that at least one of us is a big fan of Fabien Braubery, the inside centre from Po. I think given that like in the past certain players have skipped the under-20s, like Basalo Tuolangi didn't go to the under-20s World Cup last year. I don't know why he's not in the France 15 squad, but never mind. But I thought Braubery was going to be touring New Zealand, to be honest. I think he's that good. And I thought, given the kind of a few injuries maybe, and the lack of availability of Toulouse and Bordeaux players, I wondered if Liam McCrabb, the try-scoring all-action hooker from Montpellier, might get a go as well. But he's staying in the under-20s. The other one that I thought, Robin Takola, the 13, who's played a lot for Van, not only this season in top 14, but in Pro D2 last year as well. Given the first choice centres for France, pretty much, other than Gael Fickou, pretty much all play for Toulouse or Bordeaux. I wonder if we'll see some movement in that. But yeah, a lot of those guys played in the Six Nations, which France obviously won. So, and that's generally on Rugby Pass as well, isn't it? The
I
Under
think
20s World Cup.
I think I
Because
think
it's
it
World
has been
Rugby
the last few
competition, yeah.
years. Potentially I think some of the last one was, some of it was on the England games, or on BBC Sport as well. I think
Yeah.
they had
Yeah.
online, which was cool. Yeah, it's a really exciting squad. It's interesting, isn't it, as well? Before this, the under 26 nations, perhaps the year before, or the couple of seasons before, we looked at and we're like, wow, that is a lot of kind of top 14, guys who are getting a gig already. And it looked a little bit more callow this year. And then suddenly they turned in some phenomenal performances and have been getting that game time. And you're like, wow, there's some proper talent, particularly, I must say, particularly in the backs as well. Guys who are getting likes of Echegaray, and
Jean
really like the look of
Musquez.
Jan Musquez, Diego Jourde. We enjoyed,
Yeah.
didn't we, last time out? So
No,
yeah.
no Ugo Pacom, who jury's still out for me, but a lot of people absolutely love and think he's the next big thing. I think
He's going to La
injured.
Rochelle, right?
He's going to
From
La Rochelle,
Colombia.
and I think he got injured in that game against
Okay.
Montauban for Colomiers. Lorenzo Boyagallardo, Luced from USAP, big things expected from him. But I'm slightly worried about what they're going to do about the interviews, because Oliver Cowie Oliver Cowie is not available.
Oh
I think he
no,
might be injured. So yeah,
that was
maybe
funny.
surely Sameli Down-Ivuku with his Fijian heritage speaks a bit of English.
He
But
was so funny, and they like the interpretation, the most English guy you've ever heard as well. Or at least, sorry, the most English accent. He's been in France for quite some time, but
yeah.
it was very, very good. Very nice. Lots to look forward to. Summer rugby. We'll be back just a sec for some Petit-Fours and a couple of digestifs. Okay, Rob. One thing I did want to pick up, which actually started the week before, going back to my trip a couple of weeks back to Merignac.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know if you saw the outcome of this. It was actually Reese and Kerry, to Rosbiff listeners, who set us on the Merignac path originally, who kindly got back in touch. So Merignac lost that first leg at home, 14-22, and Cahors were definitely the better side. They won the away leg 33-25, which meant that it was drawn on aggregate.
Oh my God.
But Cahors snuck through on try count back.
Oh yes.
Which meant
best way to decide anything.
Which meant they snuck through to Federale for next year. They got through to the quarterfinal of the sort of Federale Championship, that combines all the leagues. So they're through. Gutting for our boys Merignac and their fantastic duck breast sandwiches and €10 bottles of wine. Cahors then had the unenviable task of going up to Brittany to Saint Malo, turned them over 26-19, which was pretty impressive. And now they have a home fixture in the semi-final against the side. So in 2025, Rob, where was the first place we went to in France?
2025.
Yeah, that is this year.
Cool.
US tour they're hosting.
Oh wow.
Which was actually very difficult to find on Google, because when you search like US tour rugby, like lots of like school trips and stuff going on.
Are they US tour? They're not like US Toursan or like
No, they're just US tours.
Oh wow.
Not
Union
great for the
Sportive
SEO
tour. Yeah.
So Tour, who beat Bergerac. That's so Cahors are marching on, Emilien Gaeton's boys. And what I did see, just to round this off, earlier in the season, I told you about, there's a clip of Will Collier and Santi Arata doing some quite niche looking cookery on a very cool kind of custom cast fire pit thing. Yes. I don't know what you call it, but some local equipment firm, as part of this kind of phase for now, has gifted one to Cahors Rugby. So they've got a lovely bit of kit at the clubhouse that they can use to cook their celebratory, duck breasts, whatever it might be on.
I don't think we ever addressed it, but Cahors going back to where they belong. I think we mentioned that Abdul Benazir, so bloke who nearly made president of World Rugby, he used to play for Cahors, but we also failed to spot when we first looked at it. Joel Stransky once played for Cahors, so wow. They're clearly a big deal back in the day, as we predicted. But yeah, maybe I think they might be my new team, especially with the Gaeton connection. They're going to be my Federale team next year.
Keep Merignac as Federale de. What does that leave us? National de. We're looking for a team.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're,
Have we got one in National at the moment? No, we've lost one because Carcassonne got promoted.
Perrigo?
Oh, yeah, Perrigo, sorry, yeah.
Slash Marcon Barrowell.
Yeah, just both of them because they're both great. I feel like we need to set this out properly at the beginning of the season. Maybe do a whole special podcast on why we're supporting these random teams. And what the double stat. We're probably like crossing rivalries everywhere. We're talking about National because a team who won't be there this season or next season, but could probably be odds-on favourites to be there the following season. Dax, which I don't think we've addressed, got deducted 5 points for next season's Pro Day 2 with 4 points. Yeah, it was a few weeks ago. I haven't seen anything else about it. 5-point deduction with 4 points suspended. So given how the Biarritz ones came into force, I think that's a real threat that they could be 9 points down for not respecting the rules and decisions of the CCCP, La Commission de Contrôle du Championnat Professionnel. They have appealed and believe the decision will be overturned. I read the statement. It's actually very convincing in terms of like what they've done in terms of like changing the changing rooms and new stand and all that jazz and like what they've invested, and that I think they were a positive balance sheet and made actually profitable in the latest season. So the last thing I saw was that they were deducted 5 points for next season, which given how they struggled towards the end of the season, well, from about the early few rounds onwards, they could be in some real danger next year, which no one wants to see. I think everyone wants to see a fair competition, but the rules are there. Rules are rules. And in France, we know they're strict on it with good reason.
The only other bit I've got was a transfer-based rumour. So I don't know if you've got anything more interesting before we...
I've got a few rumours, and I've got just to like a few leavers lists. Like a few clubs have done them, and I was just blown away by how many Montpellier had. Like Paul Valença, Nicolas Jancy van Rensburg, Jan Serfontein, Anthony Boutier, Cobus Reinach, Julien Tisserand, Sam Simmons, George Bridge, Vano Kokadze, like some Nicholas Martins I know.
Serious like 12-a-side team.
Yeah, like and some proper game time that they're losing. I feel like they did this last year as well, but like just losing a lot of game time and a complete.
It's Ali Price, isn't it, coming in at 9 for Montpellier? So have I made that up?
But also the Bordeaux one. There's a few kind of a lot of guys that play a lot, but Tavita Tatafu is going. The number 8 defeats Tafu. I don't know where he's going. I hadn't seen anything on that. But we knew Pete Samu was going to Australia. Ben Tapu, I assume, is retiring, given he's quite old now. Mateo Garcia, I think, is going Toulon, maybe? The Montpellier one just like really threw me. Just some of the volume of South Africans going. Maybe they are going to, because they've got a pretty good academy, which seems to churn out quite a lot of players. So maybe the kind of overhaul of the Montpellier squad for the better is coming through. And they're getting Rupeni Thautau Jr. So
yeah, that's pretty cool, isn't it? The one I saw earlier, which is astonishing if this is legit, and it's a bloody good lie of a rumour if it's not true, is Racing 92 looking at Nathan Hughes, which would be, I mean, Nathan Hughes at his best was a fine rugby player, but
about 7 years ago,
kind of, making some cash in Japan for quite some time now, and is not somebody I would have had on many teams' lists of potential number 8s at all. So yeah, we'll see about that. But
we should say, since we last spoke, it's been confirmed that Owen Farrell.
Yes.
In fact, it's since you last recorded, Owen Farrell has officially left Racing 92, which is, I think, on a post I said it's just quite disappointing, isn't it? Like, I think we both were kind of like, we hope he doesn't go because we want to see him give it a proper crack, because it feels like he hasn't, given the whole Lancaster Colazzo thing, given the injuries. He just hasn't given it a go.
There's also, and I can totally get why maybe want to get out of it. I think a little bit frustrated, and not that these things matter, but a little bit frustrated by some of the coverage and like reaction around this, as if like he has been playing loads and has been this sort of monumental flop and has, gone for the cash and not tried. Like
Jackie doesn't like him, and
like the bloke's basically been on one leg all year. Like he's better. Did he probably taken like less than 10 kicks at goal or something in a season?
Probably, yeah.
One of the greatest goal kickers of all time. Like it's injuries and like Racing's obviously a complicated environment. Although I did see that the Racing boys look like they're having a bloody good time in Ibiza. Henri Chauvency put up. They were giving it pretty large at the end of a tough old season. But I just slightly frustrated with, as if this was kind of one of these big like disastrous. Yeah, which it clearly hasn't been. And actually, when he's played, they've been semi-successful, which is the irony of it. But there we go.
He's not played since they got knocked out of the semi-finals of the Challenge Cup, so he's barely played at the back end of the season. Actually, their uptick in form, as you say, was coincided with when he was available. So a shame. The other rumour I saw is, I don't know if it's been confirmed, but JJ Van der Mesch to Northampton was the other one. And I know a few years ago I saw I heard an interview when he won with Le French Rugby Pod, RIP, saying that he was planning to become French. So
wow.
And he's had a pretty good season. So he could have been in that France A squad, but obviously not made the cut.
Well, Alex Moon did mention when I spoke to him last week that he'd spoken to a Parisian-based lock who had said that the key to getting on those tight head pounds is brandy and brie. Now, dare I say, maybe that was over a conversation around what the brandy and brie is like in Northampton. Who knows? But
yeah. And there aren't too many. You'd assume with that combo they would be South African, wouldn't you? But amazing. It'd be amazing to see how Roman Taufifenua does at Northampton next year.
Yeah, so. Very nice. I think that's us for another week, Rob. Genuinely, I keep saying we're approaching the end of the season. We've got two weeks left of the domestic season in France. Extraordinarily. In the meantime, you can follow us on pretty much everywhere: TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, @Rosbiff Rugby. Get in touch over email.
Give it, as we discussed on Saturday, Richard. Leave a comment on Spotify as you can. If you listen on Spotify, leave a comment. We're intrigued to see what's going to happen with a comment. So if some people that we were chatting to from the cricket club haven't already commented on one from last week, then you might be our first ever commenter. And give us a 5-star review while you're there. Yeah, please do. We're back up to a 5-star medium rating after Louis Carbonell stitched us up last season and kind of brought us down. So, you can rate us on that, comment, email us rosbiffrugby@gmail.com. Love hearing your tales of trips and all of that sort of good stuff. And if you want recommendations for Lyon, get in touch. If you are going to Lyon this weekend, we've got a few. And I've actually been there not on a rugby trip, so I can remember some of them.
Very good. All right, that has been Rob. I've been Richard. We've been the Rosbiff Rugby podcast. Enjoy Lyon semi-finals this weekend. It's going to be a cracker. In the meantime, au revoir.
Au revoir.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.